Good morning, dear students. Welcome to the English Canvas. In today's literature journey, we delve into one of the most hauntingly profound poems of 20th century, The Hollow Men, by T.S. Eliot. This is a powerful reflection on spiritual emptiness, broken identities, and the fragmented modern world. If you are passionate about English literature and want to explore poetry that challenges the mind and touches the soul, so you are in the right place. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon so you never miss a thoughtful literary exploration. So let's now uncover the silence, the despair, and the meaning behind the hollow voices. Stay with me till the end, you will find more than just words here. So let's talk about the background of the poem. The poem The Hollow Men was published in 1925, a few years after the catastrophic impact of World War One, and just before the world would plunge into the next global crisis. So, this poem reflects a deep disillusionment with the state of humanity and modern civilization. T.S. Eliot wrote this poem during a time of spiritual crisis, both in the world and within himself. Following the horrors of the war, the decline of religious faith, and the erosion of moral values, T.S. Eliot portrays the world that is spiritually barren, emotionally hollow. The title itself, The Hollow Men, symbolizes modern individuals who, despite appearing outwardly whole, are inwardly empty, lacking purpose, conviction, and true identity. So, this poem is intertextual, drawing on a variety of literary, religious, and cultural references. It alludes to Joseph Conrad's The Heart of Darkness, especially the character Kurtz, that is a figure of moral collapse. It references Guy Fawkes, that failed conspirator in the 1605 gunpowder plot, connecting ideas of the failed revolution and hollow intentions. This poem borrows from Christianity, especially the themes of sin, damnation, and the inability to cross into salvation, echoing Dante's Inferno. Right, so Eliot was also influenced by Buddhism, as seen in the imagery of spiritual paralysis and detachment. So, this poem, The Hollow Man, is often read as a companion piece to Eliot's earlier work, The Wasteland, which was published in 1922, where the world is described as barren and fragmented. But while the wasteland still searches for redemption, the hollow men is much bleaker, emphasizing hopelessness, spiritual failure, and a loss of communication between men and the divine. So the poem is divided into five sections, as we can see: first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Yes, the poem was is divided into five sections, and each section representing a progression of emptiness from the physical to the spiritual one. It culminates in one of the most famous and chilling lines in modern poetry. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang but whimper, right? So, this ending suggests not a grand or violent collapse of civilization, but a quite pathetic fading away, a reflection of modern men's existential decline. So, let's read the poem line by line and discuss its deep meaning. So, the first line of the poem is "A penny for the old guy." This is about Mr. Kurtz. He dead. So Mr. Kurtz, he dead is a quote. This is not written here, but it's in the poem. So it's a quote from Joseph Conrad's novella, The Heart of the Heart of Darkness. Right. So Kurtz represents moral decay and spiritual emptiness, and his death signifies the collapse of human values. And this first line, a penny for the old guy, it refers to a guy focus associated with the gunpowder plot. British children used to make effigies guys and ask for pennies before bonfire night. So this reflect a theme of the betrayal and artificiality, right? So let's read the section 1. We are the hollow men, we are the stuffed men, leaning together, handbills filled with straw, alas. So the speaker introduces the idea that modern people are spiritually hollow and empty from inside. तो जो लोग हैं, जो मॉडर्न है, वो स्पिरिचुअली होलो होते हैं, इनसाइड मतलब एम्प्टी होते हैं अंदर से. सो वी आर होलो मैन, वी आर स्टफ्ड मैन. सो होलो मैन का यहाँ पर यही सिंबल है कि जो लोग मॉडर्न होते हैं, दे आर स्पिरिचुअली होलो. The stuffed men, here in the second line, it alludes to the scarecrows, stuffed figures, lifeless yet upright. So this suggests spiritual shallowness, lack of identity and purpose. Leaning together, it may imply mutual support, but also a lack of strength or direction. Handpiece filled with straw, alas. So, handpiece filled with straw, this phrase reinforces the scarecrow image, right? Outwardly human but without meaning or soul. Alas, this expresses sorrow or hopelessness, right? Now the next lines are: our dried voices, when we whisper together, are quiet and meaningless as wind in dry grass or rat's feet over broken glass in a dry cellar. So the voices of the hollow men are dried up, symbolizing lack of vitality and conviction. Their whispers are faint. Their whispers are faint. जो voice है ना, are dried voice. These voices of the hollow men are dried up, symbolizing lack of vitality and conviction. जो इनका ये whisper है, that are very faint and empty, like meaningless chatter. They are quiet and meaningless as wind in dry grass and rats. So these rats feet over. So ये जो दो टर्म है ना, as wind in dry grass और rat feeds over the broken glass, it evoke decay, desolation and fear, right? And in a dry cellar implies emotional and spiritual bareness, right? Next lines are: shape without form, shade without color, paralyzed force, gesture without motion. So these paradoxes show a disconnection between appearance and essence. Shape without form, it suggests it suggests and it suggests an illusion of life or meaning. Paralyzed force, it suggests potential without action. Eliot criticizes modern men's inability to act meaningfully. मतलब वो कह रहा है कि जो ये मॉडर्न मैन होता है ना, मीनिंगफुली एक्ट नहीं कर पाता है. Those who have crossed with direct eyes to death's other kingdom, remember us, if at all not as lost, violent souls, but only as the hollow men, the stuffed men. So those who have crossed to death with direct eyes to death other kingdom. So it may refer to those who have died with integrity, perhaps martyrs that are truly virtuous. So the speaker says such souls might remember the hollow men not as evil but simply as meaningless, insignificant shadows. So this contrasts with traditional tragic or heroic deaths. The hollow men are neither, right? So this section 1, the first section of the Hollow Men, sets the tone for the entire poem. one of the spiritual desolation, emotional bareness, and a sense of loss and inertia. So, Eliot presents a world where men have lost their substance. They are stuffed men, hollow in soul and spirit, unable to act meaningful. These men are symbolic of the modern individuals, disconnected from their faith, action, and deeper meaning, right? So in section 1, the section 1 paints a disturbing image of modern humanity, which are lost, empty, disconnected from the moral and spiritual clarity. So T.S. Eliot critiques a world that is physically alive but spiritually dead. बोला है ना यहाँ पर ने मिस्टर कर्ट्स ही डेड. So this is the modern world that is physically alive but spiritually dead, where people drift without faith, purpose or a power to act, right? अब चलिए चलते हैं सेक्शन 2 पर. Eyes I dare not meet in dreams, in death's dream kingdom. So the speaker is haunted by certain eyes which are symbolic of judgment, judgment, or the past guilt. Even in dreams. अरे ये क्या हुआ? मतलब रियलिटी में तो बिल्कुल डरा हुआ है स्पीकर बाय दोज सर्टेन आइज. इवन इन ड्रीम्स, ड्रीम में भी नहीं, जो ना स्पेशली इन डेथ्स ड्रीम किंगडम, उसमें भी वो उसको मतलब उससे वो हॉन्टेड है. आइज आई डेयर नॉट मीट इन ड्रीम्स, मतलब मैं सपने में भी उनसे नज़र नहीं मिला सकता. मतलब द स्पीकर इज हॉन्टेड बाय सर्टेन आइज which are symbolic of truth, judgment, and past guilt, even in dreams, especially in the death's dream kingdom. So this is a metaphor in death's dream kingdom. It's a metaphor for the afterlife. He can't face them. So this is the overview of these two lines. These do not appear, and these powerful judging eyes don't appear there. Perhaps they are suggesting that death is a kind of escape from truth or confrontation. Maybe. There the eyes are, sunlight on a broken column. So in the realm of the dead, eyes become distant and symbolic, like sunlight shining on a ruined structure. The ruined structure is a broken column, suggesting lost grandeur or broken human ideals, right? There is a tree swinging, and voices are in the wind singing. So, the imagery is surreal. A swinging tree, and voices. And voices are they are carried by the wind. Nature becomes airy and empty, resonating with the idea of lost souls whispering aimlessly, right? More distant and more solemn that a fading star. So the wind voices are faint, they are serious and remote, and they are suggesting a deep spiritual emptiness. A fading star metaphorically conveys the dying of hope, clarity, or guidance. Let me be no nearer in death's dream kingdom. So the speaker pleads not to get closer to this truth or final judgment, fearing what it holds. He preferred to remain on the edge of awareness, neither fully alive nor dead. Let me also wear such deliberate disguises. So he wishes to stay hidden. Let me also wear such deliberate disguises. It means he wishes to stay hidden even in death, but clogged in illusions and avoiding confrontations with himself or divine truth. Rat's coat, crow skin, crow's staves. So these strange symbolic disguises suggest decay, fear, and ritual. Rat's coat. Rat's coat describes, it symbolizes filthiness or cowardice. Skin. It symbolizes death or the bad omen. Cross staves could refer to divining roads used to find water or spiritual energy, but now they are turned meaningless. In a field, behaving as the wind behaves. So the speaker wants to dissolve his identity completely, to become like the wind, directionless and ghost like, blending into the barren landscape no nearer. So he insists again, as he doesn't want to move closer to truth, to self, to God, to judgment. He is paralyzed by fear. Not that final meeting in the twilight kingdom. So the final meeting is death, or possibly divine judgment, something the hollow men dread. And the twilight kingdom evokes an in between realm, not bright with salvation, nor dark with damnation, or ambiguous and decayed and gray. So this section 2, in this section 2, the speaker expresses a deep fear of judgment and the spiritual exposure. The recurring images of the eyes stands for the self-awareness, divine justice, or an accusatory presence the hollow man can't face. He imagines the afterlife not as heaven or hell, but as a dream kingdom that is surreal, decayed, and haunted. The hollow men try to hide behind disguises, symbolizing their inability to confront truth. They fear the final meeting, which may be death as a moment of reckoning. Through stark and ghostly imagery, Eliot shows how spiritually empty and directionless they have become. So, this section intensifies the central theme of the spiritual paralysis. Unlike traditional depictions of the afterlife, Eliot presents a desolation reality where souls wander after to move forward. So the disguises and the wind behavior show that the hollow men have no strong will or identity. They are passive shadows. The Twilight Kingdom further reinforces this in-betweenness, a place of moral and spiritual stagnation. The poem reflects post-World War I disillusionment, where people feel detached from faith, morality, and purpose. Right? Now we'll read the section 3. This is the dead land. So the speaker refers to the barren, lifeless place, symbolically a spiritual or emotional wasteland. This is cactus land. So reinforces the idea of bareness. This land has only cactus. So cactus is land में which suggests dryness, desolation, and lifelessness. A cactus is though a plant but survives in hostile conditions, indicating survival without true vitality. Here the stone images. These stone images could symbolize false idols or relics of religious faith that have lost their sacred meanings. So the land is filled with things once venerated, now empty and ineffective, are raised, here they receive. So these statues are still being worshipped, suggesting the mechanical continuation of rituals without meaning. Right? The supplication of a dead man's hand. This is a powerful image. A powerful image which is about prayers or pleas made by lifeless and soulless people. The dead men here. The dead men may represent hollow men, people who are spiritually dead, praying to symbols that no longer offer hope. Under the twinkle of a fading star. So the fading star symbolizes the dying hope or divine guidance. There is a sense of cosmic loss, dimming faith, almost as if God is retreating. It is like this. In death's other kingdom. So the speaker wonders whether the afterlife or another dimension of death is actually empty or disillusioning. This rhetorical question reflects anxiety. Is there no place that offers peace, redemption, or meaning? So this is a question here. walking alone at the hour when we are. So it refers to early morning hours associated with vulnerability and introspection, the loneliness, वॉकिंग अलोन ना, जो लोनलीनेस की बात हो रही है यहाँ पर, हेयर इम्प्लाइज अ डीप एग्जिस्टेंशियल एम्प्टीनेस trembling with tenderness. So this is a surprising phrase amid death imagery. It suggests fragile humanity, perhaps remnants of emotion or longing. So there's a brief glimpse of something genuine and the human need for love or connection. Lips that would kiss, from prayers to broken stone. So passion is redirected or suppressed. The desire to kiss becomes prayer, but those prayers are addressed to lifeless idols, that is broken stone. So this is a tragic futility in seeking solace where none exist. So this is a shortest section of the poem, describes a barren and spiritual wasteland, a place devoid of true life and meaning. It's populated with hollow men who continue to perform religious acts, but the rituals are lifeless and empty. Their prayers are directed at false gods or dead symbols, and any remaining human emotion is faint and misdirected. So there is an overwhelming atmosphere of despair, disillusionment, and a loss of spiritual connection. And this section 3 expands the poem's central theme, the spiritual paralysis of modern humanity. The land described is desolate, echoing Eliot's post war world filled with meaningless rituals and lost faith. The fading star may symbolize the loss of divine presence, while the emotional lines near the end suggest that love and tender still flicker. Even in spirituality dead world, but they are tragically misplaced. Eliot's blending of religious imagery, existential reflection, and surreal vision makes this section a haunting portrayal of spiritual decay. Right? Now let's read the fourth section. ये भी काफ़ी छोटा section है. The eyes are not here. There are no eyes here. So the eyes symbolize spiritual vision, truth, and divine judgment, possibly referencing to betrays or Christ. Maybe this is a reference of Christ's eyes. Their absence implies a void which is no hope, no salvation, no enlightenment in this land of the hollow men, in this valley of dying stars, in this hollow valley. So the valley signify a bleak, desolate place, and dying stars, this one, indicates fading hope, lost direction, and spiritual decay. The hollow valley, the hollow valley signifies the hollow valley echoes the hollowness of the speaker's soul, this broken jaw of our lost kingdom. So, the image of the broken jaw suggests disintegration of power, voice, and influence, symbolic of fallen empires, lost spiritually, and fractured human values. In this last of meeting places, this may refer to purgatory like spaces where souls gather after death, a final confrontation, but ironically, there is still no real connection. We group together and avoid speech. So the hollow men, we मतलब हो गया यहाँ पर the hollow men. They are they group together, they grope together. ये grope है. The grope together and avoid speech. It means the hollow men are directionless and afraid of true communication. They move blindly. Grope का मतलब होता है blindly. So they move blindly, disconnected from one another and themselves, gathered on this beach of a tumid river. So this is actually a reference of a mythological Styx or Icarian rivers of the underworld. tumid river, ये अंडरवर्ल्ड जो माइथोलॉजिकली जो मिथ में जो रिवर्स होती हैं उनका रेफरेंस है. ट्यूमिड इसका मतलब होता है swollen that evokes unease, decay and perhaps approaching doom. The hollow men wait passively near the border of death and judgment. Sightless unless the eyes reappear. So this condition of spiritual blindness remains unless the eyes, which are basically divine grace or the truth, return. Only then can they regain purpose or redemption. As the perpetual star multifoliate rose. So the perpetual star might allude to divine constancy or heavenly guidance. The star of Bethlehem, the multifoliate rose, it echoes Dante's vision of heaven in Paradiso, symbolizing divine love and soul's ascent. Of death's twilight kingdom, the hope only of empty men. The rose exists in death's twilight kingdom, a realm of a reality between life and death, offering a faint, distant hope, but for empty men, the hollow, even this hope is tenuous. So basically, this whole section intensifies the sense of spiritual emptiness. The narrator describes a bleak purgatorial space lacking divine presence, as this is there, na, there are no eyes here. So basically, it's a valley of dying stars. This is a poetic image for lost direction and moral decay. The men symbolically blind avoid genuine interaction. They are gathered but isolated. Gathered तो है but वो isolated है. Evoking a modern spiritual paralysis. There is a flicker of hope only if divine vision appears. The eyes through symbols like the multifoliate rose or perpetual stars, which suggest Christian salvation. Yet this hope remains distant and uncertain, as even in death's waiting room, the hollow men remain passive, empty, and disconnected. So, this section 4 deepens the poem's existential despair. It portrays a liminal space, neither life nor full death, where the soul remains blind and voiceless. Eliot uses religious and mythical symbols. Mythical symbols are sticks, rose, and stars, and the underworld rivers to express a longing for transcendence. But this longing is unfulfilled in the hollow men's spiritual wasteland. So their only flicker of salvation lies in the reappearance of divine eyes, which remains doubtful. Right? चलो लास्ट सेक्शन पढ़ते हैं इस पोएम का, सेक्शन 5th. The section 5 opens with a nursery rhyme. Here we go round the prickly pear, prickly pear, prickly pear. Here we go round the prickly pear at 5 o'clock in the morning. So here these 4 lines actually about Eliot parodies the nursery rhyme. Here we here we go round the mulberry bush. Instead of mulberry bush, इसने यहाँ लिख दिया है prickly pear. एक्चुअल जो पोएम है ना, जो नर्सरी राइम है, उसमें यहाँ पर मलबेरी बुश लिखा होता है, लेकिन इसकी जगह यहाँ पर इन्होंने प्रिकली पेयर लिख लिया है. एक्चुअल पोएम ये कि हेयर वी गो राउंड द मलबेरी बुश, हर जगह मतलब ये मलबेरी बुश, हेयर वी गो राउंड द मलबेरी बुश. लेकिन T.S. Eliot parodies the nursery rhyme, and instead of a mulberry bush, it's a prickly pear. Because it's जो prickly pear है, ये basically cactus है. It symbolizes spiritual dryness and bareness. And 5 o'clock in the morning, this line, it implies a mechanical and joyless repetition, perhaps a dull early morning ritual lacking vitality, suggesting futility and lifeless routine in modern life, right? Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. So Eliot maps the gap between intention and outcome. The shadow The shadow is a metaphor for spiritual paralysis, the failure of will. Ideas and emotions are meaningless unless they are fulfilled, but the modern man fails to bridge the gap. For thine is the kingdom. Thine is a kingdom is a fragment of Lord's Prayer used ironically. It shows the disintegration of faith where even prayers become broken phrases. Between the conception and the creation, between the emotion and the response, falls the shadow. So again, this reflects the inability to translate inner feeling into external action, and the Eliot emphasis the liminal space, the interior where spiritual energy is lost. Life is a very long. So this line attributes to Joseph Conrad bring weariness. Life instead of being fulfilled or meaningful becomes an endless burden. Between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent, falls the shadow. So Eliot outlines existential fragmentation. Even desire does not lead to fulfillment. The act itself is incomplete. These lines reflect modern impotence, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. For thine is the kingdom. Again, this line is repeated again. This repetition feels broken and hollow, as if the voice can't complete the prayer. There is a struggle between faith and futility, right? For thine is life is, for thine is the. Utterance collapses mid-sentence, symbolizes it symbolizing these lines actually symbolizing decay, fragmentation of language, and the collapse of meaning. This is the way the world ends. 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 It, not with a bang, but a whimper. So, this iconic closing suggests the apocalypse will not be dramatic but quite pitiful and insignificant. The modern world decays not in fire but in silence. A commentary on spiritual emptiness, failure of human agency, and a world reduces to whimpers. Right? So, this final section, the section 5, brings the themes of spiritual failure, fragmentation, and the hopelessness to a climax. T.S. Eliot weaves together religious fragments, modern disillusionment, and emotional disconnection. The repeated use of the phrase that falls for the shadow here. Falls for the shadow represents the void between potential and action, while the broken Lord's Prayer and nursery rhyme evoke the cultural decay. This nursery rhyme it evokes the cultural decay. So the last line delivers a haunting message. The modern condition leads not to heroic ends but silent disillusion. Right? So यहाँ ये पोएम ख़त्म होती है. T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Man stands as a haunting meditation on a spiritual desolation, or we can say a moral paralysis of modern humanity. Through fragmented imagery, broken prayers, and repetitive chants, Eliot crafts a vision of a world stripped of meaning, conviction, and divine connection. Each section of the poem gradually unravels the existential crisis of the hollow man, soul caught into in limbo, incapable of action, speech, and redemption. The poem is not merely a reflection of post-war disillusionment, but also an exploration of the gaps between thought and action, desire and fulfillment, faith and doubt. Eliot's use of intertextual references from Dante to Shakespeare to the Lord's Prayer add layers to cultural and spiritual echoes that deepens the sense of loss and longing. In the final section of the poem culminates with one of modern literature's most quoted lines. This is the way The world ends not with a bang whimper. So this is the closing line. These lines encapsulates the central theme, the idea that human civilization may not fall in dramatic catastrophe, but rather in quiet surrender, consumed by inertia and spiritual emptiness. Ultimately, the Hollow Man urges us to confront the void within and around us, to recognize the fragility of human resolve, and to question the cost of silence, passivity, and detachment in a world longing for meaning. So, let this poem remind us that it's not only action but also inaction that shape the um, fate of individuals and societies. So, this is all about today's class. If you found this lecture helpful, then don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends and classmates, and subscribe to the channel for more insightful content. If you have any doubts or questions related to the Hollow Man or T.S. Eliot, feel free to write them in the comment section below. I'll be happy to respond. In tomorrow's class, we will explore another significant poem by T.S. Eliot, that one that further deepens his modernist vision and spiritual exploration. So stay tuned and keep learning. Thank you.